So that's it, guys. Tottenham Hotspur have just been beaten by Arsenal 3-2 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. As you can see, I didn't make the game today, couldn't get there in the end. And if I'm entirely honest, I feel like having watched it at home, having been able to kind of absorb the game a little bit more than I usually can at the stadium. I get caught up in the atmosphere, and I'm sure I would have definitely been caught up in the atmosphere today. And sometimes some of the groupthink as well, listening to people around you and their frustrations. And of course, this game would have had massive amounts of frustrations, echoing through the turnstiles and through the stands throughout. The emotional roller coaster would have been, palpably evident from a game where the two teams started. I thought Tottenham really started well. I thought, in the terms of the who wanted it more box or category, I think Tottenham get tick in that regard. I think that they certainly were up for the fight. I think that the midfield battle, we'll talk about individuals in a minute, but generally speaking, I didn't think it was anywhere near as one-sided. I actually would summarise and say that Tottenham were the better team today, certainly in the first half, despite the scoreline, in every department, apart from taking your chances when they present themselves and set pieces. And set pieces for me is an unnecessary reason to find yourself under the cosh. It's something that we've all been aware of. This problem, every team in the Premier League is aware of it and has been now for the entirety of the year. It is the tale of 2024 defensively for Tottenham, that we are incredibly weak at set pieces. But when people use the moniker tactically naive, I'm not sure naivety is no longer or any longer the correct adjective to describe it. I think at this stage it's willful, because naivety kind of infers some level of innocence or inexperience, or it's not his fault, he just doesn't know better, he's naive. I don't think we can say that anymore. I feel like there is enough evidence. The sample size of how to set up against Tottenham has been clear and growing all year, and it doesn't look like we're getting any better at it. It doesn't look like we're even doing any work on the training ground to resolve it. Vicario is still left to his own devices. He is still completely ineffectual when someone stands into him in the final seconds before the ball is kicked. He becomes completely irrelevant. He loses focus and can't make a save in that regard. And no one's helping him. We do this zonal marking thing where Arteta just decided today to tell everybody in the second half, all of you go and stand at the back post and beyond. And you look and see Tottenham have got 6 players sat in zones with no one to mark. It's madness. It's an absolute madness that we are not making any changes in that regard. And I'm going to use this phrase a lot in this rant here. This idea of rigid fluidity is a real concern to me. When we don't have the ball, it's of concern that there's some ideas that are embedded and that you don't pivot from. That's the rigid part. The part that when you get the ball, you don't hoof it forward, you look for a way to progress it. You invert the fullbacks, you move everybody up the top end of the pitch. You don't change set pieces. You don't do any of these adjustments. But then the fluidity part of it is when we have the ball, they say, well, you can do anything you kind of want. There's no real structure to it. You're allowed, you have the freedom as an individual to move into areas, to pull players out of position and to be creative in that regard. All of you can. There's no requirement for the fullbacks to stay in a certain zone, or if Sonny or Maddison wants to come deep, they can. If Romero, like we saw today, wants to play striker for the last 20 minutes, he's allowed to do it. And for me, if that is the tactic by design, the rigid part is you do it this way. Fluid part is it's up to you how that looks and how you kind of, how you figure that out. That's a hell of a lot of responsibility to hand over to a team of young guys who haven't been playing together that long, because you're relying and requiring so much wavelength and chemistry and ability to almost read the mind of your teammates. And at the same time, be considering whether it's you that shouldn't just react to what one of your teammates is doing, but you should also be the creative spark. You should be the guy that maybe thinks outside the box. And then everybody else has to react to you and be thinking about what you're doing. That thing, if it's going to work, is going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time, and it's going to have its flaws. And I don't mind flaws appearing. I don't mind mistakes happening, as long as there's a demonstration that you're learning from them, and it doesn't appear like we are in some of the easiest and most unnecessary ways that we're getting found out like from set pieces. That to me is unforgivable and is on Ange for not taking the time on the training ground to rectify it. All that said, I don't feel horrendous about today's performance. I feel like we were the better team. We created enough chances. We were man for man. I think we were very impressive most of the time. I thought Pedro Porro maybe was a little bit wasteful with some of his decision making, and that's another theme that we're going to come to. But I thought he held his own against Martinelli. I think he was coming forward and he showed passion and fight, as did everybody else. As I said at the start, if you want to tick a box around who wanted it more, then I think that we definitely were up for the fight today. But we don't have that clinical edge that Arsenal do. And also the other thing that went against us was a lot of bad luck. You know, I feel like when you score the equaliser, but you're offside by a toenail, even if those lines were drawn correctly, which I'm not sure they were, I don't know how you can necessarily call that definitively offside with the way that the players were shaped. One of them was sort of bent over, so how do you really know where his actual last point of his body is? All that stuff. Anyway, my point is a lot of bad luck, right? The offside goal, Romero hitting the post, Sonny slips as he goes through and skies it over the bar. I think also Porro had one that he overhit as well. Romero had 2 or 3 other headers as well that the referee was so quick to blow up fouls against, but didn't happen when the boot was on the other foot. The referee and the VAR today were a letdown for me in every of the major decisions. Kulusevski getting tripped up by Trossard. To me, I've seen that given as a foul 1,000 times in my life. If that happens outside the box, it's a foul. If that happens on a different day with different teams, with a different ref or a different VAR, that's a foul. And intent doesn't necessarily have to be there. If you run into people but you take them out, then you're stopping an opportunity. And it was in the box. It was a pivotal moment. And you know what? It didn't go our way. But in the moment, Tottenham players were too busy yelling at the ref, going, what's going on, than focusing on stopping Arsenal. When Arsenal focused, they got down to business and they had that clinical edge. And Saka is a perfect example of the difference between a player of that level, of Foden's level, and players that have a lot of really good on-the-eye stuff, a lot of will, a lot of heart, a lot of sort of, clever play and potential, but very poor in the final decision. Today was a tale of that. I thought Kulusevski had a really good game overall. I thought he was really, really strong for Tottenham, but was poor in the final decision making. When he dribbled, he ran into trouble. A lot of falling over, a lot of looking for fouls and things as well, which was starting to get to me at the end because it was clear that was the case. But same with Brennan Johnson. Lots of really mazy, out edge of your seat stuff. Arsenal players did not like facing Brennan Johnson in that second half. But ultimately, when it came to the final offlay, the final piece of the puzzle, it wasn't there. There's a lot of players that are like that over the years in the Premier League. Adama Traore is one. Loads and loads of brilliant eye-catching, eye-merchant stuff. Very little output. Jeremy Doku at Manchester City accused of similar stuff. I hope Brennan Johnson is not going to be placed in that bucket where he does a lot of good things with the ball, but unless you do the right thing at the end, then everything you've just done is irrelevant. And Brennan Johnson today was very useful and busy and aggressive and attractive to watch, but the final bit wasn't there, and it's frustrating. Sonny and Maddison weren't really at it for me today, although Sonny, brilliant penalty, unbelievable to get us back in the game. And again, talking about the consistent themes, I'll talk about Tottenham putting themselves unnecessarily 3-0 down with giving away set pieces and just not learning from your mistakes in that regard. Arsenal, again, making it difficult for themselves. At 3-0, it was game over. There were boos at half-time. Tottenham fans weren't happy with the performance. I thought the performance was okay, as I've already said, but they weren't happy with the VAR. Obviously, we came out. Tottenham kept their heads up. We did not give up, and I'll give them credit for that. They carried on, and just by Raya's mistake, Tottenham suddenly find themselves back in it. So Arsenal unnecessarily let us back into the game. And after that, the crowd lifted, the noise, the energy, everything was back on. The game wasn't over, and we fight and we push. And again, the referee misses a stonewall penalty, and again, waits for VAR to correct it. And they had no choice but to correct the final one because it's a stone wall, but I don't know how the ref misses it. He's 4 feet away from it, looking straight at it and decides not to give it. This is a common theme that you're seeing with referees now. They don't want to give 50-50s in tough moments. And if they do, it always seems to go, the way of certain teams and not the way of others. And to me, things like the offside, they should make that whole thing clear and obvious. You only overturn the decision if it's clear and obvious. If the linesman gives it off, it stays offside. If the linesman says it's onside, there's such little gap between the two players, if at all, that I think it's too close to call, and so it's not a clear and obvious error, and so the goal should have stood. And I've been saying that for a long time around how offside should be interpreted when they're that close. The on-field decision should stand. But I worry a little bit about the lack of will of the on-the-field referees to make difficult decisions when it comes to big moments, because this is not the first time that I felt this way and seen enough evidence to think that referees hand over, abdicate the throne, abdicate responsibility, and let people with technology figure it out. It's poor. It's really, really poor. But for me, look, again, this tactical rigidity, fluidity thing, I think that it's something that is going to divide fans. I saw at half-time hundreds and hundreds of WhatsApp messages in groups that I'm in, people going at each other because they have a different take on if Johnson's good enough. They have a different take on Ange's philosophy, Ange's tactics. Some are saying he should be sacked already. Some are saying he'll be gone by Christmas. We shouldn't spend any more money on him. Some are saying absolute ridiculousness. You have to give the guy time. We're playing against one of the best teams in European football, and we are a match for them today in everything other than the two departments that matter, or one department that matters, which is the scoreline, and little things that we can fix if there was a willingness to do it. And that's where I think the kind of line in the sand has to be with Ange. If you feel a certain way, by the way, about today, if you completely disagree with me, I'm not going to argue with you. I understand that at most times with Tottenham, there is a fair play when it comes to an opinion. The spectrum is so broad, and anything between left and right, anywhere in between, I think is valid, because when you watch a game like today and you see us go 3-0 down unnecessarily and you're out of the game at half-time and fight your way back into it 3-2 to the point where Arsenal were hanging on by the end, I feel like it's a fairly decent kind of summary of how Tottenham are as a team. Good enough when we want to be against the best, tactically ignorant. Like I say, I'm no longer calling it naive anymore, because I don't think that naive is the right word to describe something where the sample size is big enough to know there's a problem and you're not doing anything about it. Now it's by design, it's deliberate, it's stubborn, it might be arrogant, whatever you want, but I don't think naive is the right adjective. For me, if you believe in this idea of fluidity, and you know and recognise that in order for that to be at its best, it's going to take all of these players to have brilliant footballing IQ, intelligence, to be able to understand what each other are doing, where you're moving, how you're covering for each other. And especially if it has the licence to allow people like Romero to just decide, hey, you know what, I'm staying up here alongside Richalison. Then if you're on board with it, then you have to give time. You have to give it patience. You have to give him the tools that he needs to get players in that have a better finish, a better outcome when it comes to taking chances in big moments. You have to give that time and hope that Ange will at least identify departments of the game, not in open play. If you want to continue in open play to play the way you are, I'm okay with it, because I think that with the right additions, the right personnel, and a bit more time where the players can learn and understand it, then I think we'll get better. I think we will get better at it. But from set pieces, not fixing that when you're already structured and set up in a certain way. It's not that you're getting transitioned or countered or played past as a consequence of a mistake at the pitch. If it's a corner, that is a set piece, you'll reset, you can fix that in isolation. And if you do, then we will save ourselves 15 goals a season at this current rate of how many times it is costing us. At the moment, when we concede a corner, it's almost like I get as worried as when we give away a free kick in the perfect spot for a right foot top bins free kick, 23 yards just to the left or to the right of goal. That's almost the value of or the opportunity cost of giving away a corner, and we're not doing anything to fix it. It's unforgivable. If you're not okay with Ange, if you think that he will never change, if you think that he won't even fix corners, and that no amount of taking more chances, having players with slightly dialed up output, calmer under pressure, whatever, if you don't think that even that will solve, then I understand why you would say that, I think that, and I don't even hold it against you. It's not how I feel, but like I say, I think that any opinion is slightly valid. For me, I'm super frustrated that we let ourselves get in a position where we're 3-0 down. In summary, I think we were a better team in most departments. I think that the 11 was probably right, if I'm honest. I don't think Richalison, whilst he came on and was mischievous, I don't think he would have been right from the start. I thought Kulusevski was excellent today, just didn't have the final ball. I thought Johnson was good today. Timo Werner, obviously, we didn't really get too much time to see. Sonny was a bit disappointing, wonderful, wonderful pen. Madison, disappointing. Madison's not at it, didn't do anything for me. I think it was him that skied the ball over in the first half. It wasn't Pedro Porro, sorry. Ben Davies, I think I probably had a little bit of too much of a glass half full approach, expecting him to handle Saka better. Saka is just too good, and when he's got that space, he did cause Ben Davies quite a lot of problems. But it is what it is. I thought the midfield battle was less one-sided than I thought. I actually thought that Hojbjerg and Bentancur in the first half put up a good fight in the midfield battle. Hojbjerg, obviously, you're not going to think highly of him because of the mistake in with the header to go 1-0 down. But I thought he played a fairly decent performance. I thought Bentancur was good. I even thought in the second half, Bissouma and Sarr played okay. I don't think that there was, like I say, open play. Tottenham had most of the possession. Tottenham were fairly dominant, as I perceived it to be. But let me know your thoughts. It's just, none of all that stuff matters if you're up against a team and you're going to present them with 3 chances and they take 3 chances. Tottenham are not good enough at conversion and we're too bad. But when you look at the stats, Tottenham, I think, had an XG of like 2.4. So, we should have had half a goal more than we actually got. And I think Arsenal barely, I think they had like 0.82 or 1.1 or something. So, or maybe it was 1.5. I'm not sure. Whatever Arsenal had, but they didn't, they scored 3 goals and their XG suggests that they didn't even deserve 2. So, look, I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know whether I'm proud. I don't know whether I'm frustrated. I'm very... I went through the full gamut of emotions in that game. I'm sure you did too. Guys, let me know your thoughts. As I say, if you would disagree with someone else in the comments, don't have a crack. Don't get sort of nasty with each other, because I feel like every opinion that I'm going to see, I'll see some validity in. Shame, bad day at the office, and you got to fix the set pieces, bro. It's unforgivable that you are still persevering with zonal marking when every manager now knows to make a setup unique, and we're in trouble. Fix that and a lot of our problems go away. They really do. In terms of the players, guys, I thought they wanted it as much as I could have expected them to, and I've got a lot of mixed feelings about it, but it is what it is. It's game over. So is the top 4. Arsenal continue on their title hopes, and Chelsea next. Like, subscribe and comment, guys. And as always, bye-bye.